You have questions and I have answers. In today's video, I'm going to be answering viewers' questions about living with MS, and I've broken them down into categories. The first category is medications. Karen asks, what DMDs are you on, and did you have significant MS issues, and when, if so, did you improve? And Lena asks, do you or did you get medical treatment? The answer is yes, I did seek medical treatment and I am on a DMD, a disease modifying drug. My first relapse was in 2006, but I wasn't diagnosed at that time. I didn't meet all the criteria for an MS diagnosis. I did make some significant diet and lifestyle changes at that time, and luckily I went 10 years without another relapse. At that time, I got my diagnosis and I did start on a disease modifying drug. My choice was Copaxone, and I'm now on the generic of Copaxone, and it seems to be working really well for me, along with my diet and lifestyle changes. I did have some significant issues with my first relapse. They were foot drop, and I had spasms, and they gave me high dose steroids in the hospital to help with the foot drop and to help with the lesion. I had a big lesion in my neck that was causing a lot of my issues. The steroid did help a lot, but I had these residual symptoms of foot drop. It did get better, but it was still there. I started doing yoga after that, and I did that for many months very regularly. And I really credit the yoga to helping a lot with my foot drop. When we do consistent exercise and we try to improve a certain area over and over, it's called functional exercise. Our brains can rewire. It's called neuroplasticity, and it can help send new signals to help us move better. And I did a whole interview with Dr. Gretchen Hawley. She's a MS specialist physical therapist, and I'll put a link above and in the description below all about neuroplasticity. When it comes to medical treatment, I am not against medical treatment. I work really closely with my doctors, and if my MS does ever get worse, I would consider changing to a different DMT. The next category is diet. Becca says, I need to change my diet. Don't you have a book on clean eating? Yes, yes, I do. It's called Simply Nutritious. And in it, I give 15 meal plans for whole food plant based eating. And it is based on putting one half of our plate non starchy vegetables, one quarter plant based protein, and one quarter starchy vegetables. All of the meals come together in less than 30 minutes, and they are super simple. And I will put a link to that in the description below. Kirsty says, I struggle with simple recipe ideas for anti inflammatory dishes. I would love some suggestions as I'm not a big chef. Excellent question, Kirsty. Um, when looking for anti inflammatory foods, I would suggest looking for the colorful ones. The more colorful the food, the more anti inflammatory they can be. So look for things like red, orange, and yellow bell peppers, zucchinis, dark green leafy vegetables. These are all really high in anti inflammatory properties, so check those out. I'm also going to suggest some books. Forks Over Knives is one of my favorites. They also have an app, lots of really good recipes in here, and lots of good background of why a whole food plant-based diet is anti-inflammatory and how it can help us. Another one that goes along with that is My Beef with Meat and the Engine 2 Diet. These all have really good recipes that are full of anti-inflammatory foods. Lisa asks, would a high protein diet be appropriate for losing weight? A high protein diet can help jumpstart weight loss. My caution is that a lot of high protein diets focus on meats for their protein, and meats have a lot of saturated fat, and saturated fat can be a problem for people with multiple sclerosis. I did a video recently on fats that I will link above and below. If we can get our fats from omega 3s and omega 6s instead of saturated fats, it's better for us in the long run. If you're going to do a high protein diet, try to focus on plant based proteins like soy products and legumes, and even dark green leafy vegetables are really high in protein. The next category is exercise and mindfulness. Anne says, I would love to hear more about your mindfulness practice with or without an app, and if so, which one? Thanks, Anne. I started my mindfulness practice about 6 years ago. I started going to a class that was offered at my local yoga studio, and it was a 30-minute guided meditation class, and I found it really helpful. It helped me to center myself and to be present and to settle my monkey mind and relax my thoughts a bit. I went on to take an 8-week mindfulness based stress reduction class based on the teachings of John Kabat Zinn, which was kind of life changing. Learning how to be mindful has really helped me a lot with my MS. Many times I would get caught worrying about the future or feeling guilty about the past and wondering what I could have done differently in my life. And I wasn't living in the present moment. So mindfulness really helps me with that. I do three things for my mindfulness practice. The first one is every morning I take 5 to 10 mindful breaths before I get out of bed. This helps me start my day in a mindful way. And the second one is when I get into bed at night, I take 5 to 10 more mindful breaths at the end of the day. And these are just long, slow breaths where I focus on my breath. I try to let go of the thoughts of the day and just be really present and assess how I'm feeling in that moment. It is a great way to start my day and a great way to end my day. I also do a guided meditation every morning after my coffee. Right now, I'm currently using the Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation app, which I will put in a link below. And I really like doing guided meditations, and I like to start my day with guided meditations. It gives me food for thought in the day, and it also sets my tone for the day. I have done different apps over the years, and I have always found different meditations that I love with each one, and I'll put some on the screen around me and also in the links below. June says, I'm really interested in learning more about exercise for people with MS, using kindness and compassion, and even some effective ways to control stress. Excellent questions, June. Exercise has been called the single most effective non pharmacological symptomatic treatment for MS. And that means it's the second best way that we can treat our symptoms outside of medications. I exercise every single day. I make it a priority. It's non-negotiable. I either take a walk or I do yoga or I work with weights or I do Zumba or I do Pilates. I do something every single day. And I really think that it helps with my MS. There are tons of research papers on this, and I will put a link above and below to a recent video that I did about exercise and how it can help. Kindness and compassion, I think, are really key. And I think that's an area where a lot of people don't realize how helpful it can be. When we live with kindness and compassion towards ourselves and towards others, it can be very, very helpful. It helps release the feel-good hormones like oxytocin, and it gets rid of some of the stress hormones. So this is really helpful for us. There's lots of research saying that stress is bad for MS and it can bring on symptoms and even relapses. So it's really important for us to focus on kindness and compassion. And I think just having that awareness helps us day to day. Effective ways to control stress. Exercise can control stress. Being out in nature can help us to control stress. It naturally reduces stress hormones. And having a good support system. These are all ways to help us to control stress. I think it's really multifaceted. And also talking with a therapist. I started talking with a therapist shortly after my diagnosis, and I still see her today. And she gives me a lot of unbiased feedback and gives me tips and tools to help control my stress. Lou has a two-part question. Number one, I'd love to hear about how you established and have sustained great bedtime and eating routines patterns. And when do you fit in your exercise? Both great questions. Establishing patterns can be hard. I would say the first thing to do is to find your motivation. Why do you want to do the things that you want to do? And a lot of times people will say, oh, I want to be healthier. That's pretty generic. So I invite you to dive a little bit deeper. Why do you want to be healthier? What's your motivation? What deep down really motivates you to be healthier? Do you want to be healthier for your family? Do you want to be healthier to extend your career? Do you want to be healthier so in the long run you can live better with your MS? Is it for family, friends, personal reasons? Really dive deep. Why do you want to be healthier? And then, if you need to, write it down and put it where you can see it every single day. Um, Getting into patterns, find the things that you think are non negotiable. For me, exercise is non negotiable. I have to exercise every day. And this has become part of my day every day. I go for a walk, I work with weights. Sometimes I do Zumba, sometimes I do Pilates, sometimes I do yoga. I need to do something every day. And I do, most of the time, do it first thing in the morning. Having a consistent time really helps me to be consistent with my exercise. That's how I have established my patterns. There's no secret formula. I've made it a priority. I've told myself it's non-negotiable. I know that I need to exercise to stay healthy as long as I possibly can. The next category is viruses. Lionel says, as a long COVID sufferer, it seems that many of the symptoms are similar to those of MS: fatigue, balance problems, difficulty with sleeping. Is that something that you have been looking into as a way of getting a better understanding of how these viruses work in affecting the cell biochemistry? Viruses can remain latent in our systems. The Epstein-Barr virus has been causally linked to multiple sclerosis, and it lays latent in our systems. It's always there, and our bodies can react to it. I also had COVID and had long COVID, and some of the symptoms of long COVID are fatigue and dizziness, tingling and numbness, changes in memory and thinking, anxiety and depression. A lot of those overlap with MS symptoms. So, yeah, viruses can be a big problem for people with MS. I haven't looked into the cell biochemistry, but I might in the future. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you like content like this, please give it a like and share the videos. And to see more on living well with MS, watch these videos next. And until next time, be well.